topic today for episode 14 is deconstructing dams, demolition of dams, also called restoration. What's this a picture of? I see yourself asking. Now, old viewers have no idea what this is, but I have a feeling new viewers might know what this is. That's right. It is a reservoir. It is a dam. It is specifically Hetch Hetchy Dam in Yosemite Park, a beautiful Yosemite Valley like place originally. And now that is a bunch of water that belongs to San Francisco. Now, it's been proposed to get rid of this. It doesn't produce that much electricity from this dam, and its value is mostly as a reservoir of water, in principle owned by San Francisco. And often, or at least, for example, Dianne Feinstein, when she was mayor and this came up, it feels like a natural spring water. That's where your water is from. And it really is, even as a reservoir, a beautiful bunch of water. Though, as you can see, as a reservoir, it's dead because that's, I don't know, thousands, hundreds of feet up. And it's not like it turns into a beautiful lake shore. But it is a beautiful, bowl of water. But of course, it has to go through a lot of muddy canals on the way to San Francisco. And you don't need to keep all this water up here. This amount of water could be kept in the reservoirs downstream, for example. And that's the way it should be. So here is how flashing. I don't know if there's a way to change that. What if I did that? The mouse moving. Sometimes it does that, sometimes not. This is what it used to look like quite a long time ago. 1908, it says. Um, this is another picture of Hetch Hetchy as it is today. Huh. See, this is not monetized, so whatever. If I want to experiment, there we go. Turn it off and on helped. Okay, still quite pretty up there. Here's another view, with the dam, giving you an idea of how it's dammed. Here is a simulation of what it would look like if restored. It's like a Yosemite Valley kind of place. John Muir really loved it up there. It's like a little miniature Yosemite Valley, full of life and coyote and rabbits and deer and grass. Restoring it, all you're really giving up, it's so high up in the mountains, you're not giving up any of the water. It just flows down into the valley to the reservoirs down there. And you regain so much. And it's a good industry to support because basically we would drain it out. It'd be all muddy and gross. Stuff would come back naturally, but what we would want to do is, hire a bunch of college students and the like to go up there and plant saplings and seed grass and, all of the local flora that's around and maybe the fauna, but the fauna will come back in. I mean, there's a lot of wildlife and a lot of this fauna still around in the Sierras there and in the park. So it would be a boon to ecological restoration economy and do a good thing and also generate millions in people hiking up there. Even if you don't let people drive in, you just let people hike, it would be a super ecotourist kind of place because Yosemite Park already is that. Now here's another example where we need to restore. This one hits close to home. This is one called Maloney's. On the Stanislaus River, a place that, as a kid, this is what it looks like when it's full. And see, again, no, this is exactly what the hill looked like when I was a kid, but it was 1,000 feet up the cliff. I used to play in this river when it was a little thin river, and live on it in the summer. My dad was a hippie, lived in a teepee on it. This is exactly what was 1,000 feet up the cliff, because the water goes up and down, even though the 6 feet, it doesn't become like a lake, because this is like 30 years later, because this was flooded in like 98. Could look it up. I just looked it up. It was like 98. Here's what it looks like recently with the drought, though it filled right back up again in 1 year. It was supposed to take 10 years. There's a boat ramp, and when it's empty, and this is why it never becomes a lake, because it's every year it's subject to 10 and 20 foot up and down cycles. Nature doesn't really get a foothold, and it just looks like, see over here way back from the lake, how those high hills look with that amount of wood. That's what this is. Now, in the old days, this is what the river looked like. But, for a few 100 feet right by the river, just really verdant trees and sandbanks and grasses and mints when there's springs springing out around. And I used to go up and down this river when I was a kid, as I said. Now, underneath this reservoir, this barren wasteland of a big bowl of water, this produces more energy, though. Is this beautiful lady here? I just think it's a no-brainer. We need to go back to this. If you just flooded out the reservoir, this would actually come back in time. Centuries, but it would come back, or a version of it. But if we helped restore it, it would come back pretty much to what you see, right? There'll be a ton of mud and silt, but for the first few years, there'll be floods that wash that all down. You might want to have some sort of dredging operations where the silt, builds up. You might want to pull that out, do something with it. I'm sure the ecological scientists would have a lot of ideas of how you could help the process along, make it rapid. You could drop flowers and grasses from and maybe even saplings or tree seeds from the air, but probably send people in by hand to plant saplings and get things back in order. We can restore everything. Now, we lose a lot of energy from losing hydroelectric. In Maine, we don't have as abysmal stuff as this. We have dams we get hydroelectric off that are like 30 and 40-foot dams. It's not as important to drain those because those actually do become lake-like when you keep the level steady. However, we could drain them, and then the fish can go up and down them easier. And for that matter, boats can go up and down them easier. I'm thinking, small boats, canoes and stuff. You might have to port upstream sometimes. But it's all easier if you get rid of the dams, and all we need is to just face facts. It's going to happen in the next 50 years. We all know it, right? Oh, only I know it. But we're going to have probably some sort of thorium cycle energy. And look, over here, This is a lifetime supply of thorium. An American currently, that ball of thorium there, that's how much thorium it takes to produce all of the energy for all of the autos you're going to use, your house, all the gasoline, everything. That's enough energy in that ball of thorium for one person for their whole life. So I'm just saying, if you wake up to safe nuclear energy, the broad spectrum, and many of the designs for nuclear energy are safe, way safer, way less toxic than gas and coal and so-called fossil fuels, then we can do all kinds of things. We can blow up the dams and a controlled demolition and free our river spirits and the ladies of the river. We can start mining our landfills. It'll be possible to reprocess the materials in the landfills, because the only reason we don't do that is it takes a lot of energy. It's easier to get the raw materials into form than to do hardcore recycling from a landfill. All recycling that we know how to do now becomes dirt cheap. You could desalinate if you want. You could, for things that still want to burn carbon burnable fuels, right? For I don't know, jet engines is a good example. Things like that. I think we're going to have good heavy duty electrical motors for all of the diesel trains and stuff. But hey, if we don't, we need some sort of a carbon diesel type fuel. You can distill that with nuclear energy. It's so cheap. You can distill that from seawater, and at least when you burn it, even though there's monoxides and stuff like that, it's carbon neutral, because the carbon part gets absorbed back into the ocean, because you can distill it out of the ocean. And for that matter, you can do almost all the mining of this. Starts to get expensive, but you can do almost all the mining for all the minerals that are in the dirt. They're in the water. Thorium's in the water. As a matter of fact, a sands is a good place to get thorium, because it'll collect in the sand, because it's in the water. All of the minerals that are in the earth are dissolved in the oceans, and that's why they're salty and stuff, because some of those minerals make it salty. And so with enough energy, you can actually distill billions of tons of all of the minerals, gold, everything, out of seawater and ocean water. So a lot of things open up besides just releasing the ladies of the river trapped at the bottom of these lakes, reservoirs, death tunes. I think you've got my point by now, probably. I hope so. Um, Cheers, and I'll see you later. And, uh, you know, may the chemical reaction nature of the water molecule guide you in your wellness in this time of SARS-2 crisis. I hope you guys are all doing okay. I'm sure, as most of us, we will do okay. Seem to be weathering it. We're taking some blows. We can react and get through that. And I hope that that's what your fortune is. We can handle this. We need to stay together. All right, cheers.